Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning. In case we haven't met before, my name is Doug, and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. Let's see, got my comments up and running. Got a thumbs up there, thank you. That's making my day. Thanks so much for that. So, that's a funny conversation. First of all, J. Roy, I take it that's Jorn, is that correct? So, the short story is a few years back, Jared James Nichols was one of the teachers at one of the guitar camps. I had a long conversation about the gestation process of getting his signature model kind of out there. So one of my dreams would be that this would be a publicly available model. So that goes right to the heart. So thank you for that, Joran. Mike Rand, good morning, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. In Arizona, there we go. I'm seeing you in Vegas, my friend, and I look forward to it. And I'm going to be doing, those of you that don't know, Mike does. I have the privilege of teaching at Nuno Betancourt's Guitar Camp, the six-string sanctuary, and there's going to be a bevy of obscenely great guitar players there, including Mike Rand. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm also going to be doing private one-on-ones. So, Mike, do me a favor. If you're so inclined, please make sure that you and I connect. There'll probably be a list on the outside of my door. At least that's how we've done it in the past. So I would love to have some private time to hang out and catch up with a guitar in your hands. All right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Albert, what's going on, my man? Happy 2020-26 to you, my friend. Great to see you as always. David, what's happening? Thank you. I am glad that I am feeling better too, and I will graciously accept that. Holy cow. Felt terrible. And gosh darn it. It's nice to feel a lot better. Jorn, hello, my friend. Excellent, excellent. You will not be disappointed. This little piece of technology here, that is the best. Super reverb. Amp model I've ever heard. They did a fabulous job on that. In any case, let me know when you get it. That's exciting. Brian, or Braden, what's going on, my man? How are you? Thank you very much. It is indeed time to rock. Francesco, good morning. Hey, great to see you, my friend. When does that guitar course of yours launch? Let us know in the chat, please. Welcome and good morning to you. Terry, hello, 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 hello. Mike Rand, fantastic. Thank you, Francesco. Appreciated. David, good morning, good morning. All right, so we got a couple of things that are on my mind for you. Number one, top of mind for me is I'm in teacher mode because I'm getting ready to go into the guitar camps. And then right after that, I'm going to go into NAMM, and I'm hosting a series of tech track panels specifically around the House of Worship. So one of them is going to be around Helix Stadium and Power Cab. There are some Power Cabs floating around here. Then there's going to be one with my good friends from Gibson. Then there's going to be one with my good friends from IK Multimedia. Then I think after that, we're doing one on Nord. I don't play keyboard in a way that anybody wants to hear me play it in public, but that's going to be happening. Then we got one called it was originally called the Drum Problem, but it's about kind of getting a great drum sound. Then we've got one on great sound checks and mixes. Then we've got one on hottest trends in sound. That's going to be with my buddy Jeff Hawley, who is the senior vice president of marketing at this giant conglomeration of companies that includes Focusrite and Alan Heath. He's a super heavy cat, and there's all sorts of great people that are coming to that. Then we've got, that was Hot Topics, and then there's another one that Jeff and some of his buddies are on, and then we've got one for the Spanish-speaking church. Even if you don't do the church thing, which I totally get, there's going to be a ton of stuff, especially on the Line 6 panel that happens at 10 a.m., the Gibson panel that happens at 10:30, and the IK Multimedia panel that happens at 11. So if you're in town for the NAMM show, please come hang out. It's going to be in Laguna AB in the Hilton, and you will need to have a NAMM badge, but it's not like it used to be. Pretty easy to get a badge these days. All right, with that out of the way, this is kind of where we started last time. I affectionately call this my Beato board. One of my favorite things that Rick has done in some of his presentations, he's got a board so you can actually get a visual. However, in the spirit of Doppler's Gear Garage, I wanted to do something on the gear front. So I've gathered a few of my favorite friends. So my first question of the day is, first of all, Jeff Fogarty, what's going on, my dear friend? Hello. Steve, I guess I just answered that question. Hey, look at you, bearded, handsome fellow there. And Tim, good morning. Great to see you. Okay, so while I'm doing this, down in the chat, if you can let me know, what is your biggest problem around theory and or guitar? And I will do my best to answer that. How's that? Because I had a few ideas of what I wanted to put up on the Beato board, but I also wanted to gather some feedback. All right, that said, in the spirit of Doppler's Gear Garage, Solo Boost is the topic of the day. Now, this right here, I didn't want to do the full unboxing because I think unboxing seems like a really strange thing to do, but this is technically a unboxing. This right here is the XTS GE7, and for those of you that know what this is, you know what this is. So I bought myself a Christmas present, and so my buddy Mike Mong, Bay Area guitar player, played in a band called the Freak Executives. They were signed to Warner Brothers. They were a huge influence on me, and my buddy Michael Mong used, where's my, there it is, used a GE7 in the loop of his Galen Kruger amplifier. And so this is one of the best solo boosts and or solo tone shaping devices you could want. So I've had this guy. This is a silver bottom, so it's not super, super old. This is from the good folks at XTS, Exact Tone Systems in Nashville. And what they've done is they've taken this device and they have basically reconfigured the EQ points around where the guitar is supposed to be. And so the end result, you know, quite often you'll be using this on a pedal board, but for the scope of this conversation and for the scope of this piece of gear, we're talking about what you need to do when it's time to make your solos louder. And I'd be curious how many of the folks that are here have a solo boost problem. Kevin, what's going on, my friend? Great to see you. Chris Alexander, I hope that dive meet goes great. Griffin, good morning. Good morning. I appreciate that. You know, it's a funny thing. Make or break is yes. Efficient time. Wow. Zinger, I love you. So yes, efficient time is important. What's going on? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay. There we go. Blue waving tear. What's going on? What's going on? Wes, how are you? Okay. You immaculate stallion. I'm glad I took a shower. Okay. I look forward to seeing you at NAMM. That'll be fantastic. I will be there all 4 days. I'm also twas the night before NAMM, before the Vegas guitar camp, I'm playing a show with Larry Mitchell and Ronnie Lee at a venue that I don't have the name of in front of me, but that will be on the Wednesday before the Nuno Guitar Camp. Then on the Wednesday before NAMM, I'm playing at the pre-NAMM hang that's put on by the good folks at Worship Musician. My buddy Chris Rocha, who's a phenomenal guitar player, is going to be there. And we also have the amazing Saxon Weiss. And if by chance you haven't heard about Saxon, I think he's 13 now, you will absolutely be hearing about him. So in any case, the point being, for those of us who play live, one of the things that we always kind of have a challenge was, how do we either go from our rhythm tone and or our melody tone to our lead tone, where we need a little bit extra, kind of a bump and a boost going on there, right? Brenton, what's going on, my man? Excellent. Well done. Well done. I will be playing at NAMM this year. Well done. Where are you playing, my man? Okay, this guy, for some of the people watching this, I've had this since before you were born. But back in the 80s, I played in a band called Captain Crunch, and kind of on the other side of this camera here are a trio of Randall RG100s. And in those days, I spent a lot of time playing through an RG80, which is, more or less a slightly lower wattage version of the quote-unquote the dime bag amp, or one of the dime bag amps. They were solid state. And so the thing is, it had a great tone, but one of the challenges you always ran into is like, how do I make my solos loud? And so there are a couple of pieces to the equation. One is that, let's just say you have enough gain going on with your rhythm tone that when it comes time to step up for your lead tone, all you're really needing to do is add some volume. So this device I had placed in the loop. And as I mentioned before, my buddy Mike Mong used to use a GE7 in the loop of his GK, whatever it was. Oh, we got lots of comments. I'll catch them in just a moment. Backstage Bar and Billiards. Thank you. I'll be at Backstage Bar and Billiards in Vegas on Wednesday. This Wednesday. Thursday. The Thursday before Nuno Camp. My bad. Okay. So the thing is, because the Nuno Camp actually officially starts on the Friday, it'll be on the Thursday. And then pre-NAMM hang is on the Wednesday. So the deal is, one of the neat things about using something like a GE7, very easy to find, is you place it in the loop, and then you can boost whatever specific frequencies you want to have pop out a little bit more, or whichever ones you might want to cut a little bit as you go to boost your solo. And this is kind of, for those of us that have been playing live for a long time, this is kind of the age-old struggle. So I brought along a few of my favorite friends to show off here. So let me just grab a link here real quick. XTS GE7, and there we go. So the thing about this pedal is that, there we go. I'm going to grab the link and I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it here, and it's going to appear hopefully on both. There we go. No, that looks like it only appeared on YouTube. All right, but the point being is it was developed by Tom Bukovic, session ace, in combination with the Exact Tone System folks. And so the EQ points have been moved so they're a little bit more guitar friendly. And the great thing about this is it's a great way to get your boost and is your overall level control. And then you can choose which frequencies you want to boost and or cut. Now, for those of us that like to speak boogie, this is kind of my favorite little stick it in the loop. For example, behind me, you're going to see two Badlander 100s and a Badlander 25 and a Triple Crown 50 and then other various boogies. So the thing is for those of us that love that classic boogie EQ, this is another great solution. And what's neat about this guy, it's got input and output volume. And so the idea is it allows you to, say, for example, you're wanting to have an effects loop and you're wanting to maximize sonically the input going into the unit and the output coming out. And let's just say your effects loop does not have a send or return volume. This gives you the ability to do that. It's a really smart way to figure out, do you like, kind of want it at basically unity gain, such that when you turn it on or off, if you have the sliders leveled, boom, straight across the middle there, that it was just totally the same. Or do you want to have it such there's a little bit extra goosing you get simply if everything's flat, you have when it's turned on. And do you want these controls high noon? Do you want to pull them back and mess with it until it gives you the sonic results that you want? Sometimes fiddling around with those levels allows you to get a little bit of a sonic thing that you're wanting to have happen. The other thing about it is, if you're playing through a tube amplifier, there is very frequently a 12AX7 tube in that effects loop circuit. So you have the ability to get a little bit more magic going on there. Now, I would be remiss if I did not say, first of all, this is the new version of the MXR micro amp. So the old version and the new version, they've added some really great features. For example, wait for it. You've got your gain, so there's your overall level of what this guy used to do. And then you've got treble and bass. And that, again, although it's not a traditional graphic EQ sort of a situation, that adds a huge amount of usability to this pedal. And so what's neat is that, this is something that I've used for decades. So it's a very valuable tool if you're looking to get that solo boost. And then last but not least, for those of you that live in Dimesville, these guys used to be blue, and I have one of the blue ones over there hiding, but then you've got the MXR graphic EQ. I guess that is another slight unboxing. But the deal is, what's neat about this is kind of, this is one of the pieces of gear that was in the Dimebag arsenal. And so this concept of using a graphic EQ, and Edward, by the way, used the Boss 10-band EQ, as I recall, into the front end of the Marshalls back in the old days. And that was an integral part of that Brown sound, pegging the front end of the amp, not just with more volume, but also being able to shape the tone of what was going into it. All right, so in any case, that is a little bit of a landing in all of that. First of all, let me try and catch up here. And thank you, everybody, for the well wishes. Much appreciated. It is really, really nice to be back. And for those of you, and again, thank you, Mike. This is where I'm going to be Thursday night this week coming up with Larry Mitchell and Ronnie Lee. Super stoked about that. And yes, getting the leads to get through a mix without losing the tone and the feel. And so this is kind of one of the interesting things. As long as we're going to have this conversation, I'm trying to decide what amp I'm going to take with me. I've got a couple of choices. And, as you begin to think about, let's say you've got a couple of different amps and you use a couple of different solutions for different things you do, choosing what you're going to bring along and why is a big deal. The John Petrucci Signature Mesa Boogie, the JP2C, has a selectable presence control that has two different presence settings. On the amp, it's a push-pull function. And presence sits above your treble control. It sits later in the circuit than the tone controls. And the thing about the presence is it allows you, if the guitar, you're like, I feel like when the drums and the bass are playing, but the guitar is just kind of slightly buried, presence is the one control rather than treble that I'll turn to kind of make the guitar kind of poke its head up above things. And the great thing that they did with that amplifier, and this was a combination of John and his amazing tech, Maddie, is that they added, and I think the story is loosely, when they were putting that amp together and they were quote unquote prototyping the amp, and Maddie has amazing ears. And the great thing about, every great guitar player is usually working with a great guitar tech. So for example, at Nuno's camp, Steve Vai is going to be there for one of the days of the camp, and Thomas Nordegg is also going to be at the camp. And Thomas worked with Frank Zappa, and although he's not currently touring with Steve Vai these days because Thomas is a little bit older now, but the point being is Thomas is a genius, and when you've got a guy like Steve or like John, the tech off stage knows the expressions and the nuances and the kind of the body language of like, oh, they want a little bit more high end. They want a little bit more gain. They want a little bit of something, or something's not right. And so one of the neat things is that those guys' ears become really attuned to things. And Maddie noticed that the presence control had accidentally been set to the wrong frequency. But he was like, but I kind of like this. Can you give us a push-pull knob that allows us to toggle between the two? And to the best of my recollection, that is one of the MIDI controllable functions that you've got on that amplifier. So that means with some sort of MIDI type of rig, you can engage which one of those you've got set. And the neat thing is that little extra, the stock one is a little bit lower. The pull one is a little tiny bit higher, but the neat thing is sometimes you're going to be playing with different musicians, you're going to be playing in a different room, you're playing a different song, and getting that guitar to sit just in the right spot in the frequency spectrum, that presence control, again, and if I'm dialing a tone for a mix, or I'm working on a demo, like something I'm doing this week, for an unreleased product, and the brand of which I can't say, But the deal is that quite often the presence control is the last control. Once I've got a tone that I like, but I pull up whatever digital drums and bass I've got, I'm like, I just need the guitar to just come forward just a little tiny bit. I just bring the presence control up a little bit. And the neat thing about that, and the unique thing about that, is quite frequently, as you're sitting there just listening to the amp on its own, where the presence control sits is usually a little bit lower than I have a tendency to bring it up to once I start listening to the guitar in the mix with some other instruments. Not always, but I frequently find myself going back to just a little bit more. That is to say, the guitar on its own, quote unquote, naked in the room, where it sits most pleasing to our ears, there's something called masking that happens. And if let's just say your bass just lived over here and your guitar lived over here, that's fine. But as they begin to have frequencies in common, there'll be one that will be either a little bit louder than the other, or they just begin to kind of, it's like walking down the street and two people are walking at each other. One of them has to move aside. And in the process of that masking process, whatever is the less dominant and or just gets diminished a little bit because it's sharing that EQ space with that other instrument or instruments, as in a snare drum, as in a hi-hat, then you got to go, okay, well, let me get a little bit more, let me push that guy out of my way. Get over there. And so that's where the presence control can be a huge help. And I frequently find that, again, it's not until I'm dialing stuff in the framework of a mix and I've already got my, this is great. And I start playing, I'm like, it was great until I added all those other things. That's where presence for me has a tendency to be a big help. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Oz Guitar Works, be playing bass with a guitarist from Greece. Oh, fantastic. Kinakos Baloubasis. How wrong did I get that? I guess I should, that's the expression for that. All right, Sean, good morning. The pink Strat is over there. For those of you who don't know, Sean and I both have a fond affection, as does my buddy Chris Alexander. Walking off set for the first time in 2026. Thank you very much. Hopefully I'm not going to drop anything. All right, this guitar, the pink Strat, is one of my tone solutions. And I'm going to freeform a little bit, but I'm going to try and hang out in the framework of the comments. And by the way, please bring your questions if you've got any. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you don't own a Strat, can I strongly suggest getting one? Unless you've had one before and you're like, yeah, I'm done with the Strat thing. But the thing about a Strat, and the funny thing is, somebody asked me about this Flying V yesterday, and oh, I don't have the volume pedal engaged there, so I just discovered one of the things that, and who knows if this is in tune, but discover parts of your guitar playing personality on a Strat that you won't discover on another guitar. And let's just say, like I said a minute ago, maybe you've had a Strat, you journeyed into building what I call a Super V, kind of based on what you did, the concept of a Super Strat where you start adding stuff to this. Basically, my mission there with the Flying Vs was to take a Gibson starting place and then add some Fender-like qualities to it, so it's really a Super V, right? But an instrument like this, first of all, playing single coil pickups, there's a certain intimacy and playing through a tone like that, you're going to find things And if, for example, we take let's take you, come on, and let's take, there we go, and you. Oh, that's coming from there. Hang on a second. That shouldn't be doing that. Oh, are you here? There we go. Hang on. There we go. And then kind of getting used to the idea. It's like, hey, making something happen when you don't have all the goosey juicy. That is to say, you got no delay, you got no reverb, you don't have all that fun stuff like that to fill in the blanks. All of a sudden, you got to work a little bit harder to get something to happen. But in the process, you learn how to sit with the notes in a way. The delay kind of adds a little bit of spatiality, but it also provides a little bit of that lean that when you turn that off, you got to learn how to lean back in the time a little bit more, because the delay, because it's after the notes, allows you to play a little bit further forward than maybe you want to, but the delay kind of adds a little bit of, if you will, backwards glue. But having to play with nothing on the notes and with an instrument that's as revealing as a Strat can be, it's really good. The other thing is, I lost my pick a minute ago, as you start working on single string stuff, it's not quite as forgiving as that's a, because it's got some, that stuff on the top. As you're working, it's not going to give you much extra love. You got to work for your take-home pay. And so the neat thing is you'll discover things about yourself on this instrument. The other thing is, one of the things that happened in my playing, I think in 2025, was I really started moving from picking here as my default picking position to picking there, and on a Strat in particular, picking here, you get a lot more of the pick sound, but the deal is when you're down on the bass strings, you don't get as much of that happening. So learning to kind of work around that and kind of going, gosh, this doesn't feel good at first, is part of how you kind of make it such that the areas in your playing, I'm going to speak for myself, but I'm talking to you. I'm going to say that 99.9% of the people who are watching this have an area in their playing like, oh gosh, I'm not that good at this particular thing. And we have a tendency to avoid that thing. And some of you will have heard me say this before, that the things that I'm not good on, I'm actually running at and trying to go, okay, what is it about this particular thing that I'm not good at, and how do I fix it? And one of the benefits of that is, first of all, it means that when we think about the guitar, and I'm talking to you, I think many of us, pretty much all of us, have a range of emotions we feel. The joy that we get from the things that we do well, the joy that we get from the days that things line up and everything's kind of like butter, and we're like, oh, that was a great day. And in turn, on the days that aren't so good, we have a tendency to disproportionately beat ourselves up compared to how when we have a good day, oh, that was good. So one of the things that Steve Vai had said when he gave his clinic at GIT when I was there in 1985, may have been 84, but I think it was 85 when Steve came and did the clinic. He said, I don't practice for my best days, I practice for my worst days. And that has always lived with me, because the idea is that what happens on a day when you go to pick up the guitar, don't know, let's go B flat. And you pick it up and you're kind of like all the things that you normally do well. For whatever reason, there's not a little bit of magic happening. You're just kind of like, wow, that just all kind of, it's just not, you're just not centered on the instrument. And those days, at least I find for myself, I'm a little overly harsh with myself. But what I've learned to do is take a more elongated approach, which is like, hey, let me figure out what it is that's happening that I'm not comfortable with. Maybe I was trying to do something that I'm not good at yet. And then I kind of, oh, well, I didn't do that well. Flatulate yourself, and the idea is those feelings, though, I would say I'm going to beat myself up because I don't do that well, have a tendency to linger longer than like, hey, that was a great day. And that's the paradigm of being a guitar player. This, had a great day, I had a terrible day, and kind of navigating between those. As Steve pointed out, the practicing for your not as good days and days you're not as inspired means that at least your technique and that work lifts those days up. And I think it's a very, if you look at Steve's career, literally this was before Alcatraz, before David Lee Roth, it's post Frank Zappa, Steve Vai. It was a very insightful comment into his headspace, and it left a lasting impression in me, and hopefully it will be beneficial to you. So the point being is that an instrument like this, especially when you get over here where it's, again, part of what makes the Strat so beautiful, if I turn on some of the fun stuff like you and you and you, there's a dynamic range. Right? So it's an incredibly dynamic instrument in a way that humbucking pickups aren't as dynamic. So there'll be things that you'll learn about yourself on this instrument. It's also, somebody out there either probably already put it in the comments down below or asked, what about switching between Fender scale and Gibson scale? And the interesting thing is, as I've gotten used to kind of toggling between the two scales, I literally don't notice and don't really feel the difference in scale. This has got a longer scale. As you go from if you measure the distance from the nut, for example, to the 12th fret, this is going to be a longer measurement than it is going to be on a Les Paul. So the frets are a little bit closer together on a Les Paul. But, so one would think, as you're toggling between Gibsons and Strats, or Gibsons and Fenders, I should say, that you're going to feel a huge difference. And the interesting thing is that I really don't. And part of it is, I think, my body, the moment I pick up this instrument, it sits the way it sits on my leg and comes into my body like this, my hands automatically go into place in relation to that. All right, so down the gear trail we have gone, but hopefully that will be helpful. Shredding Finn, what's going on? I ran a GE7 in the loop of my JCM 900. You can really shape the tone as well as boost. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a great solution. Yes, I am feeling better. Thank you very much. Better. I'm feeling better and better. Thank you, my friend. Hey, how is the new amp? Let us know. Let us know. Let us know. Sonny, what's going on, my friend? Everything from Italy. Alec, are you going to be at the NAMM show? That's what I want to know. And will I see you, at the Line 6 booth, if that's the case? What's going on? B-Town in the house. Thank you so much. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you. Eric, I need your address because I need to send you those wrist things. Gosh darn it. Mark Turvey, and good morning, by the way. Mark, good morning. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I look forward to seeing you on Friday. Thanks so much, my friend. Happy New Year, by the way, to all. I love you as well. Nice to be with B-Town in the house. For those of you who don't speak B-Town, that's Berkeley. For those of us who know the Bay Area, gosh darn it. What's going on, Tony? Buenos tardes, maestro. Buenos días, amigo. ¿Cómo está? Hola. Bien, bien, bien. David, I may need one of those. So this, and this is kind of one of the things. Now, I have one other device. Where are you hiding? I did a little studio grab, and I may have missed one of my other devices in the pile here, uh, which would mean I've got to find it in the room. Or just tell you about it. No, give me a quick second. Let me see if I can find that because I pulled it. There's a rig I'm putting together, and I know some of you are going to be like, "Where'd he go? Where'd he go?" Come on, where are you? There it is. Got it. Coming. There we go. All right. Now this. The funny thing is, before everybody knew about Daniel as a YouTuber, the gig rig is the brand that Daniel from that pedal show. This is his brand, and so I've known Daniel actually met him for the first time at an AM show about 18 years ago, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And for those of you in the worship world, in case you didn't know, Darlene Sheck is his sister. Kind of a funny thing. This is an amazing secret weapon. So basically, this is an effects loop attenuator. And so what you've got that is MIDI controllable is you have two separate level controls for your loop. And so that, now the thing about this is, it is a passive control, as I recall. And it means that basically what you're doing is you're bringing the level of the loop down. But, so that is to say, there's not an active boost in here. However, what it enables you to do is to be able to go, hey, let me figure out at two different points, including the ability to then bypass the unit, so you have three different volume levels on one box. And so there's a whole bunch of different. That's right. So on this guy, you also have an internal effects loop. So say, for example, you want to be able to remotely control your effects, your solo boost, and have a couple of different options to choose from. This box does in a loop what no other box on the planet does. Really, really, really cool. It's a standalone box. So the idea is that, again, as I recall, it is not an active boost, but it allows you to attenuate down, and I think that's generally the concept of attenuation. You're bringing stuff down, but by having, somebody gave a thumbs up there, but the ability to set that, and then the other thing is that you've got a bypass button for each one of these guys, so you can bypass it once it's selected and go, okay, let me check it, and because one of the things we want to go back and forth is that enough? Is it too little? And then be able to go, okay, how do these sit against each other? And that is a very powerful solution. And again, because it's MIDI controllable and it has a built-in loop, it's a great way to be able to control a bunch of this stuff. The other thing is, it's also a great vehicle in case you want to have effects loop driven time-based effects like delays and reverbs, like you heard me toggling with there, out on your pedal board. So say you've got a Strymon Big Sky, and you got an Eventide H3 or Eventide H9 or H90 on your board. You want to be able to kind of manipulate it down there in front of you. The ability to use this as your kind of loop controller, and then have the ability to, in bypass mode, turn that loop off. There's a lot of great functionality that comes in this box. So there you go. All right. Gosh darn it. Let's grab this route again. Let me catch up here real quick in the chat here. So in any case, you may have mentioned this, but the X2S is showing the pedal is OOS. Wait, hold on. What is OOS? Is that a new word for gas? In any case, this is groovy. So the thing about this is that you can get these guys. I put the link in what only showed up on YouTube, so my apologies, but the website, and there's a wait list, and well, actually, it's not a wait list. What happens is they have them available, they build a bunch, and then they don't. So it is, hold on, refresh there. Well, hold on. I wonder if I can get this as an over. Well, it's xacttone.com. And so they're $250 plus shipping. But the thing about this is that, again, because the EQ points have been reshaped for guitar, where, if you think about your average GE7, they didn't necessarily make this just for guitar. Yes, it's a stomp, but lots of keyboardists use stomps in their rig, or have historically. All right. Gosh darn it. Chad, hey, great to see you, my friend. How goes it? I've got a sidebar conversation that you and I will have a little bit later. Chad has kindly sent me, for those of you who don't know Chad is a huge contributor to the Helix/Line 6 world. He runs, let me make sure I'm going to get the flippin' name right. The name of this group is officially, come on. There we go. The Line 6 Helix Stadium Family User Group official and original. And gosh darn, he also makes these great guards for the face of not only the original Helix, but also Helix Stadium. So he has kindly sent me a guard for my stadium. But there's a sidebar conversation that I'll have with Chad about the installation of that I will not have on the live stream. Chad, thank you so much. I am feeling considerably better. How are you doing, and how is that show prep coming along? Gosh darn it. Okay, we'll pick this up via chat. Paul Richard, how are you doing, my friend? How is everybody feeling in the house there? So the funny thing is, Melissa and I don't have kids, so we don't have the infection circle going on where, the kids come home from school, they get sick, and then they get us sick. We don't have that circle. So, Paul, I hope you don't mind my revealing your intimate medical details. How are you and the wife feeling? Sonny, I will go buy a Strat now, right? Come on. So, and the funny thing is, it is such an iconic sound that, by the way, just for pisses and giggles, all right, I'm relatively close to the bottom. Hey, what's going on, Matt King? And I'm going to catch up on the chat in just a moment. The thing about a Strat that is, I should probably do a video on how to play Strat. And so an instrument like this, the 5-way switch. Oh, sorry, I went to the... Move the bar out of the way and I reach for it. Each one is in the bridge. I don't spend... And the great thing about this guitar, it's got what I call the Eric Johnson mod, where unlike your average Strat, which does not have a tone control, there's a couple of things that Leo did that if Leo were living and I had a chance to talk with him, I would ask him, like, the Strat bridge pickup, it's a little bright. Why did you make the treble strings even brighter by slanting it that way? And while we're at it, the one pickup that you might want to... Want to roll off that tone control? He didn't have that on basically the stock design. It was a very strange thing that he did. He would have had a very clear idea for doing it. But the point being is each one of those different pickup selections in combination with the tone controls is going to bring out all these different tonal and textural shades. And so, a guy like Jeff Beck, was always messing with what pickup selection he was on. And changing the colors of the instrument. And honestly, between Fenders and Strats, I would say Strats have a tendency. Strats and Les Pauls and various Gibson guitars. You have a tendency to have a greater ability to shade the colorization with that on a Strat than your average 2-pickup, 3-position pickup selector, 2-volume, 2-tone instrument, which is why we built this guitar. And the idea being is that if I want to back off on the tone control, or I want to move to the number 4 pickup selection, so the interesting thing is that through this particular sound, which is kind of really a compliment to the great work that Gary Brower did, the DiMarzio pickups, and the fact that this is a great guitar, we took a lot of the things that I learned from this instrument playing Strats, and we baked it into this instrument. This guitar actually came out better than I thought it would. So this is the second Super V. This was guitar number 1, and kind of take a look at the patina on the edge of the pickup. I played the daylights out of this guitar. This guitar is roughly 3 years old. I've already gone through a refret. There are numerous dents, as you could just hear how I created them. But when we got a chance to build the second one, we wanted to change things up a little bit. And so one of the things that we did was we put a hum-canceling P90 and a mini humbucker, which sounds amazingly Stratty, especially when I combine it with, and this is a Satch track. Middle position, which is normally a position I would use very little. That's just the Satch track on its own. Really kind of has a buttery quality. Compared to the average middle position, which is normally a little honky. Now I'm down in the number 2. Isn't that pretty? And the thing about this is because your average Strat, and I hope I'm not rabbit trailing too far, but this is Doppler's Gear Garage, so we're going on a gear patrol today. Generally speaking, each Strat is kind of like, for those of you that have kids, that kid is that kid. It has its own personality. It really wants to sit with a certain tension and a certain thing. It's actually, I've got a buddy, a gear buddy that's in town from China. We're all over the world. And, he and I had this conversation the other day about signature instruments. You can see the signature Majesty right there. You can see a Gem Woody right there. You can see a Chrome Boy right there. You can see effectively the Kirk Hammett, Greenie right there. In many ways, those instruments reflect a distillation of the player's experience personified in an instrument that does a bunch of these things. Not in the room at the moment is the Yngwie signature Strat. And that instrument, what's so cool about it, it's really kind of like the best 70s Strats recorded in one instrument. So if you went out and bought a couple of those guitars, they would be consistent with each other in a way that every other one of my other Strats, they're all just so different. They all want to be set up in their own way. The balance between the strings and the claw position on the tremolo and the springs that are in there and the personality of the instrument, they're all just completely different. And the interesting thing is that these two Vs, although they are different sonically, the consistency is very high between them, which is one of the things is for those of us that play live, one of the things that is a must for me is like whatever instrument I've got as my main instrument, when it's in a critical situation, for example, being out on the road touring, I've got a main guitar and a second guitar I'm going to need to reach for if I break a string. Something happens. Stuff happens. I was in Los Angeles, flippin' A, opening for Michael Schenker at, what's the name of that venue? It wasn't Billboard Live at that point, but it's down on Sunset Strip. Lots of people, and I'm like, I keep hearing this, boom, boom. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I look down, and my bridge humbucker, the screw has come undone. And every time I lean forward, the pickup falls forward and hits the bass strings. I was like, you gotta figure, and this is like 20 seconds into the first song, it starts happening. And, it was my number one guitar, so I made it through sound check. So whatever happened between sound check and actually, the downbeat of the first song, and I missed it. That's what happens when you're your own tech, which is why having a hot swappable second instrument, that actually that 7 string is over there. And so literally, instead of focusing on playing the show, I'm like, oh, I got to lean back so the pickup doesn't fall forward into the strings. And, it was kind of an obscenely obnoxious moment to have to navigate. Los Angeles, anytime you play a town like Los Angeles and you're down there on the strip, it's kind of a big deal. You want to focus on like bringing the best that you've got, and to have a gear breakdown in the middle of that moment and, have to kind of limp your way through the first song of your set, it's just a thing. So the point being is that having a hot swappable second guitar or something that's very close to it is kind of part of the DNA of what I want to be able to do. But as it relates to this instrument, we built a better guitar. The other thing is we actually routed this guy as opposed to the FRX that is a rear mount here. A top mount, meaning that we didn't route the back, but we're going to make it back from the Nuno camp. This guitar is going under the knife, and we're going to actually add, traditional Floyd with that. The point being is that even though the Floyd systems on these two guitars are different, they play very, very similarly. And the idea is that when you're in an onstage moment and something goes wrong with your number one guitar, reaching for the number 2 guitar or having 2 guitars where you can toggle between them freely is a big thing. It's one of the other reasons some of you will have seen I was spending a bunch of time playing through that Fuchsia Epiphone 60s Les Paul that I absolutely love that guitar. And I bought a second black one because I'm like, I like this guitar so much. I'm really taking this on the stage. So I needed a second hot swappable backup. All right. Down the rabbit trail we went. There we go. Thank you very much. Right back at you. Nice to be here. Good morning. Thanks so much. Albert, yes, the JP2C Presence MIDI switchable. Thank you so much. Now that is pretty sweet. Thank you very much. So the neat thing about that, for those of you that either just tuned in or were here before, again, the Presence control is that one last little thing that if you're like, well, I don't want to come up in volume, but I'm just feeling like my guitar is hiding, that Presence control, being able to just turn it up, adds a little bit of extra something on the top end that makes the guitar kind of come up above the mix there without having to bring the volume up. The other thing is that, again, the JP2C has a switchable Presence frequency, which was confirmed there. So, yes, thanks so much. All right. Chad, excellent. Good. Oh, I've already gone through this part. There we go. Pulling out the Strat brings back a question I always forget to ask. As a Strat guy myself, how do I find a great intro? How do I get into a classic Les Paul? I just can't find a sound on a neck humbucker that I like. All right, here we go. Hang on. I'll be back in a second. It's a great question. It's a great question. I'm grabbing one of the Epiphones. And I may also, I found a demo. Every so often I clean up my hard drive. And I have no idea, by the way, one of my things that I will try and do better this year is all the guitars that kind of sit in the racks. I should probably have a tuning day every week, and I don't. So for those of you that have multiple instruments, if I can make that suggestion. So that's a great question. So as Braden kind of pointed out, one of the things for those of us that kind of went through the 70s with the Gibson experience, definitely out of tune. So the word tubby is a word that has been classically, if you were to gather a room of 10 guitar players, especially people that are a little bit older like myself, and say, hey, you know, if you could think of an instrument that the word, what's going on with you? Tubby had been applied to, the majority of us would say, oh, that would have been kind of the 70s era Les Paul neck position. And holy cow. I must have detune this for something I was working on, because I can tell it's a half step down. All right, in any case, the idea that there was a period of time that the neck position pickups in the Gibsons had a certain tubbiness. And so there was an era where Gibson Les Pauls really, this whole tubbiness in the neck position, it was a thing. Now, the interesting thing about all of this stuff, and this is what's kind of hilarious about guitar players, there was an area of pickups called T-tops, and people couldn't get those out of those guitars fast enough. And if you go on to Reverb and you Gibson T-top, and you look at the prices of these things now, and I realize you can't. All right, hold on. I got to share this. It's just nuts. First of all, thank you for all the people that tune in and watching. I hope this is helpful for you. All right, so we want to get over to Chrome, Google Chrome. We want to get over to... There we go. Look at these prices. People couldn't get these things out of their guitars fast enough. $320 for a set, $599. It's insane. Everybody was like, let me get rid of this thing. Gosh darn it. It's completely lunacy what people are paying for these now. They were hated. So the deal is... Oh, hang on. This guitar has one of the best neck pickups. That I've ever played. Holy cow, is it good? It's got, even down on the low E string and the A string, that area of the neck is notoriously murky on Gibsons. So, Braden, to answer your question, go down to your local music store, plug into about as many Gibsons as you can, and find one speaks to you. This is the 60s Les Paul Standard. These are no longer available on Sweetwater's website, but they're $599. $699 or $599. I was looking at one of these yesterday. Hang on a second. Gibson.com. Give me just a quick moment. Oh, I might have that tab still open. Hang on a second. No, hang on just a quick second. Let me give... Oh, JD Simo, Gibson Custom Select. Nice, JD. Congratulations. Okay, 60s. Oh, sorry, my bad. It's an Epiphone. Got to go to Epiphone. I tell you what, it's $5.99 or $6.99. The point being, it's a great sounding neck pickup, and compared to your average kind of 70s and 80s Gibson, they just kind of have figured out a couple of things and made it better. That's one of the great things about time. Things get better over time. And, it's a combination of, generally speaking, with my Gibsons, when I've got them at standard tuning, I've got them set up 10 through 46. A Strat at standard tuning, I'll keep it 9 through 42. But with these guys, the ones with the tremolos, those are set up 9 through 42 because they're this strange kind of hybrid between a Gibson and a Strat. So, great question. And again, I didn't mention this before. So, if you're in the market to pick up a Strat, I don't even play them. When I'm actually looking for an instrument, I'll listen to the sound of the strings acoustically, and the guitar is going to tell me what I need to know before I even have to spend any time picking it up. And finding the one that, that you can tell, oh, there's that right combination of stuff. You can hear it without actually having to play it. And then once you play it, one of the things, as long as we're on this conversation, picking a guitar. Let's go there. For me, one of the things that is an issue is that my thumb, I've got medium-sized hands. One of the issues is being able to get my thumb wrapped around for the Jimmy chords. A guitar that's got really big, what we would call shoulders, right there and right there, begins to present a problem for me getting my thumb around the top of the neck for the Jimmy chords. Ditto. When I'm down in that thumb, I use it as well for some of the leverage when I'm bending on the fifth string. Same thing when I'm there. So if I can't get my thumb around the top of the neck, and also begins to affect other places where I want them. That thumb, keeping that relationship of the grabbing part of the playing when we're doing, and you want to. So let's say I'm in G. There's a certain hand position you're watching me establish that I'm keeping that no matter where I am on the neck. And if I can't get the thumb around the top of the neck enough, it messes with that. And it's insanely distracting because most of the instruments that I play, I can kind of move those different registers. And if I want to keep the thumb wrapped around the neck, again, for bends and just leverage, when I'm not in classical hand position, that the shape of the neck at the shoulders there is a really, really big deal. So that's the next thing I'm going to test for. It's like, hey, how is it working with my thumb? Now, if you don't spend a lot of time doing that thumb thing, then so be it. But if you're kind of an old school, kind of grew up playing the pentatonic, I'd suggest kind of playing with your thumb around the top of the neck. And, for example, in the key of G, we may be heading into lesson mode here in a minute. I want to identify some of the different places I'm going to play these Gs, because those are places I'm going to navigate in that key and kind of navigate to and end up at. So that's a spot I know I'm going to be at. And again, it's not just the bends. That vibrato there is the relationship of grabbing the neck like that. And if I'm having a hard time getting my thumb into position there, that G. The other thing about this is, although I'm not grabbing super hard, so I'm taking my thumb away, I have enough finger independence I can do it without having the thumb there. I'm not grabbing super tight, but it's just enough such that there's a little, that little bit of grabbing that's happening there with the thumb gives me kind of a ledge off of which these fingers, versus I kind of have to then elevate these fingers on their own, feeling how far from the strings, where when this is here, you can actually see when I'm playing it without the thumb versus the thumb, I can get much closer to the strings when that thumb's there. Oh, sorry, I said I was going to say in G. Now, that said, then you begin to kind of go, well, what are the common keys? So we also want to begin to investigate our A's. So on and so forth. All right. Oh, hang on a second. Hold on, let me get down. Okay, let me follow this thread through, and then we're going to talk a little bit about notes. I'm going to make a mental note for myself. We're going to get to here, notes. Okay. That is a Fender American Original 60s Stratocaster in shell pink. A really sweet instrument loaded with bow nut and pure vintage 65 gray bottom single coil Strat pickups. Thank you for that. Like he said. And so this is one of those few moments where I did something kind of not super typical. All right. First of all, this was an era of Fender guitars that they've, one of the things that happens with these brands, they're first of all improving things, which is great. But one of the kind of the new trends that all the major brands are doing is they kind of have a tendency to be rolling out new models all the time. So people like me, like, hey, let's reel them in and get them to buy another guitar because there's a new instrument. And the great thing about that is that in the process of that, some of the series in particular you fall in love with. This is from the American Original series. There is behind at the top of the Beato board here, there's the bass from that series, and I have a Telly from the series, kind of one of the Keith Richards style, and a Telly custom from that series. And there's another instrument that I can't remember what the heck it is. It was from that series, but basically the idea when they went to make this is they went, hey, when you go to buy this guitar, this is as close as we can do it within a reasonable price point. It was about a $2,000 guitar, give or take. That if you walked into a store in the 60s or walked into the guitar store today, this is an instrument that would be consistent with all the things you love about that guitar. And that said, when I thought about the color, I said, can you send, because I went to review this and I ended up buying this guitar, can you send me the pink one? Now, as it turns out, Melissa, my wife, thinks this is one of the stupidest guitar colors ever. I fell in love with it the moment I saw it. I was like, just send me that. And Sean, I'm sure we feel the same. So the point being is that as it turned out, the mistake, that we got to watch out for is like, oh, I'm buying that guitar on looks. So it turns out the guitar is every bit as good playing wise and sonically as it is good looking. There is a problem. Sean, I'm curious to know the saddle. And by the way, this is another kind of hack here. The saddle on this particular guitar on the high E string is always going down. So it keeps lowering itself automatically. Now, there's some folks that are like, hey, put a little dab of super glue on there, but you want to be careful as to how much you put on there. I need to ask my buddy Gary Brower in terms of what he would suggest doing. But basically, it means that I've always got to kind of keep an eye on that high E string because it's always kind of dipping down in slow motion. But and it's like that. I need to do another little adjustment on it where I'm like, it's fallen again, right? In any case, all right. Jay Frockton, hey, what's going on? I saw you open for MSG at a small club in the Bay Area in 2009. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. welcome to the stream. If you're still here, hello, hello, hello. That would probably have been in the North Bay in Santa Rosa. Pleasure. Hey, thanks for hanging out. All right, Francesco, what's going on, Rockstar? I have one by ESP. Those are great guitars, by the way. But need to replace the bridge pickup with a Seymour Duncan mini humbucker hot rail for soloing. No shredding, just soloing more fluent. So this is the other thing. Thank you, Francesco. As he pointed out, if you're used to having something a little bit more fluent is the word in the bridge position, that's kind of where I would argue that the real reason people like Eddie and people who play super strats, the way that whole thing came about is you go to play the bridge position in a strat in a high gain setting. It's humming because, and by the way, this is what you would refer to as a wide aperture humbucking pickup. Your average strat is a narrow aperture single coil pickup. And so what that means is that it's hearing the string from a very narrow range. And when you're over here, where are my presets? Let's see here. Let's go here. What are we looking for? I think this is the one I want. A little bright. Now, I have the ability with this guitar. That you get, isn't that cool? Dang. Is a certain degree of separation with the notes. However, if you're looking for that really, really full thing that you get much more in the neck position out of the bridge position in the way that I could do it on that guitar or any of those guitars, you're not going to get it. And so that was kind of like, okay, that's the missing link. And that's a flipping great idea. I would not, so getting back to what I started to talk about, the narrow aperture single coil pickup. Here's the string from this one location. The benefit of using a mini humbucker is it's now hearing the string from more than just this narrow location. And so that mini humbucker, what was it? I saw a guitar that, so one of the things is I'm prepping for this Gibson panel that I have the privilege of doing at NAMM. Where is that flipping guitar that I found? And so part of that is specifically talking about instruments that I think are good choices for the house of worship. And gosh darn it, Francesco. Let's see if I can hit the right button here. That's not the one I want. I want this one right here, Chrome. There we go. So this is basically a Les Paul special with mini humbuckers. And so I'll be. This is going to be. I'm going to be preparing a slideshow deck for the class. And the great thing is Andrew Ladner, who's does a number of different things within the Gibson family, is going to be my special guest on this. I'm super excited about this. He is a super heavyweight, but this for worship guitar players is a flippin' great choice, or those of us that love. Hang on. Okay. And I didn't forget about the note names. Where are you? There you go. So, this instrument right here is my Les Paul Special. And the neat thing about this in the bridge position, I'm out of tune, so I will check my tuning in just a moment. But the point being is that there's something really, really cool about a P90. Now, these are actually some custom P90s that Gibson's making that are now like the one that's in the Super V number 2. Come on. These are hum-canceling P90s. And these are a little tiny bit harder. These are actually what are in the Billy Joe guitar. But the point being, it's a certain vibe there. And also, if you play with your fingers, having that little bit of extra. I got a gate on here that you can hear it kicking in. You get over the neck. Which, by the way, gets to our previous question. Like, hey, what about, what's that asked that? Gosh darn it. Braden, you know what? If you have a local dealer that is a Gibson dealer that you like, you might have them, come on, if you have them maybe see if they've got one of these in stock or see if they're going to get one of these in. Because that may be the answer to your problem of, like, not liking the neck position pickup. I'm jonesing to get my hands on one of those. I'm going to ask my friends at Gibson, like, can they send one for a review? Because the narrow aperture pickup, because it's picking it up from a smaller area. So that is to say that is the mini humbucker is not a truly narrow aperture pickup like in a Strat, but because it's not as wide an aperture, you may find it's like, oh, I really did this. You may find that you don't. But these are P90s canceling. But, you know, the thing about having a wider aperture pickup, you're able to get that little extra lift as you want. When you want to go to the bridge position there, right? All right. Gosh darn it. So, and by the way, those ESP guitars. So the sad story is the only guitar that I've ever had that got stolen was an ESP, one of those great Strats that they did. It had an ESP style headstock, but they did it in the late 80s. And one of my students had borrowed it, and I had borrowed my first S series, we kind of loaned each other guitars, and that ESP got stolen out of his car. So he ended up giving me the Ibanez, which was kind of a happy accident, except for the fact that I lost that ESP Strat. It was a great guitar, but the bridge position is the problem. So let me know what happens with that mini humbucker. I'm really excited. It's a great solution because you're still keeping some of the thing about is a narrow aperture pickup is a narrow aperture. It's the view of the string that it's seeing as it's picking up the electromagnetic. There's, your pickup's a magnet, and the string is interfering with that magnetic field when it starts vibrating, and so that's how it kind of transduces the sound. So, but it still hears the character of the string based on where it is. That is to say, if you hit a harmonic on your bridge pickup, and you hear it on the neck pickup, some of these harmonics you just don't catch on the neck pickup nearly as well as you do with the bridge pickup. You know what I'm talking about. So the point being is by having a slightly wider aperture with a mini humbucker like this one right here in the neck position of this guitar, that allows you to expand the aperture of the bridge position on that Strat, be it an ESP one, in a way that should be a really great choice. The other thing is you're now going to get a humbucking pickup, and you're going to have that extra, the noise cancellation from the humbucker and probably a little extra gain. And then it's just a matter of making sure that the other two pickups are well balanced. So well done. But what do I expect from you? Nothing less. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. How about my favorite sax-like lines? Okay. So first of all, first of all, everybody that's here, I'm going down the chat. Hello, 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 hello. Thank you, 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 thank you. Okay, so I am a crappy sax-like line player. However, one of the things that I love doing, and I'll be able to do it. Not like that. Well, hang on. Don't forget to mute your guitar when you unplug it. So there's a certain amount that it's one of the things that Marcus King, flippin' great guitar player. There's some video of him playing really great jazz lines. So he's a guy, I think he's playing some Coltrane, and it's just, you're just like, holy cow, what doesn't this guy do? So he obviously spent some time studying that. I'm not a great jazz player. It's one of the areas that, of all the things that I'm not great, that I decided I would choose to just kind of go, there are other people that will always do that better, and it just wasn't something that I was like, of all the things I got to fix, that wasn't one of the ones that I felt pertaining to the things that I wanted to achieve in music was high on my list. However, saxophone. So it was something that I remember when I was, honestly, it was from the days that I was still sharing the teaching studio with Joe, that it was still functioning as a music store. So there were all these different guitars that you can come in and play and plug into different stuff. And one of the things that I kind of stumbled across is what I call the saxophone. That is to say, it's just using, the bar for dips and vibrato. But for me, there was kind of a certain kind of wah, 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 And yeah, it's still inherently guitar, but that's why. So I'm in the number 2 pickup selection, but I didn't have both volume. The way this guitar works, if I'm in the number 2 pickup selection, both volume controls. So there's a certain amount. That saxophony. Although it's still very inherently guitar. It's about, and the interesting thing is the player I play with a medium heavy touch. And for me, that largely comes from the array of different amps that are in the room. Let me turn all the stuff off. There's what I would call the envelope of tone. Let me turn that down a little bit. So if I'm wanting to get something at the same exact setting, that can go from that sort of, you wouldn't necessarily use that same sort of kind of more vintagey without I back off with the right hand. Also, obviously depends on the note selection, but if you're looking something that's more shreddy nature, for something like that, you're wanting something that's got a reasonable amount of gain to it. And the ability to have that and then be able to switch it. Now I'm going to put on a little bit. Let me give you a little bit of this guy. That right hand working the envelope of tone there. Now I can play with a heavy right hand, still get a vintage vibe, but I want to. If I heard that tone on its own, I wouldn't necessarily expect that there was actually all that extra level of gain. And that is to say, as I play through a number of the different amps here that are lower gain amplifiers, digging in when you've kind of got the amp kind of at the point where it's kind of at the sweet spot, digging in only creates more right-hand noise and generally makes the amp respond in a way that's not good. But the ability to work with different levels of dynamics with the right hand is important. That said, when I'm doing the saxophone business, I'm using a pretty pretty light left hand there. So as I'm working that up, the touch is much lighter. Normally when I'm playing legato, there's a fair amount of, where is it? When I'm getting more in the saxophone-y vibe. Whereas when I'm in rock mode, those hammer-ons and pull-ups, there's a lot more velocity as I'm coming off the note. That is to say, the hammer-ons and the pull-offs when I'm more in the saxophone-y vibe, I'm playing much lighter. So If you're looking to get more saxotony, one of the things I would suggest doing is starting off with a G major 3-note string scale. So that little exercise is basically, it's what I loosely call the add a string, take a string away exercise. We're starting on 6, 6 and 5, 6 through 4, 6 through 3, 6 through 2, 6 through 1. 1 through 6, 1 through 5, 1 through 4, 1 through 3, 1 through 2, 1. 1 through 2, 1 through 3, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, 1 through 6. 6 through 1, 6 through 2, 6 through 3, 6 through 4, 6 through 5, and 6. And basically there's what I call a shunt on kind of the turnaround spot. So at the point that I've added the high E string, and I've gone 6 through 1 and back, then I'll just do kind of halfway. And now I'll be ready to start from the first string to the 6th. That is, say, the last one. If I start, then I will just do, before I start, and then the same thing will happen. So I started adding strings back in. So there I went 1 to 6 and back. Now I'm going to go down just 1 through 6. And now I'll start from the opposite direction. So I can assure you that 99.9% of the people out there, including myself, you're going to start to play this and you're going to go, oh, holy flipping cow. This is an endurance building and strength building. Again, one of the important things I want to point out is the thumb as you're doing this, you want the thumb. Do you remember kissing grandma on the cheek? Grandma, in her old age, you didn't want to come up and knock her over, in your enthusiasm. You gave grandma a little gentle kiss on the cheek. That's as much pressure as you want to have on the thumb on the back of the neck. All the thumb is doing there is keeping the neck from being pushed back like that. That's all it's doing. And there's a certain amount, the positioning of the body, that is to say, and I talked about this loosely with the Strat, one of the things is that the upper bout comes into my mid bout, and then in turn the right arm kind of positions the guitar down and kind of holds it into position there. The other thing is on the flying V, there are people who say, oh, it's not comfortable to play sitting down. That's not the case. This little lower bout wing there, I kind of use that to position where the guitar sits. So it's literally, I'm not holding this thing, and I can choose kind of where on this axis, if you will, the x-axis, the neck sits. And in turn, the idea is that we want to be using, and a kind of almost the exact opposite of what we were talking about before, where, as I'm looking for a neck shape, I'm wanting to find something that's comfortable for the thumb to navigate between different positions up and down the neck. By the way, this is first position, second position, third position. This is pattern number 1 and pattern number 2 of the minor pentatonic. Positions and patterns are different things. But first position and third position, and it's literally, if you're playing with the fingers in position, what fret the first finger is going to be at, that's third position. Sixth position, so on and so forth. But the point being is you're navigating between the different positions, what's the comfort level is. Now, the interesting thing is that with this classical hand position, the thumb is loosely in the middle back of the neck, but it travels with the fingers generally in between this little spot here between my first and my second finger. It's a little bit, because the first finger has a tendency, especially with the Satriani students, we all had a tendency to do this thing. Sorry, that was pretty crappy. Where that first finger doesn't leave the string. And it's doing a really important function there. It's touching up against the side of that second string and keeping it muted. And whether you're using the alternate picking or legato, the idea is the right hand is now down across the third through 6 strings, keeping those silent. So literally the only string that can ring is that high E string. So oh boy. So that's basically taking that same idea and playing it on one string, which I've never done before. That actually wasn't half bad. But the idea is that if you were to turn that into a functional exercise, you would be taking the key of G major, G, hold the A, hold the B, half the C, hold the D, hold the E, hold the F sharp, half the G, and adding the A and the B there at the end. And you're going... Actually, I'm going to add some extra pick strokes in here to make it a little bit easier. It's 3 up and 3 down. I blew the turnaround. You get the idea. So now we're taking it away, then we'd add them back in and flip that around. That's a great legato exercise. Holy cow. So again, conceptually, what we're doing is we're just starting off going. Then we go. Then we go. So we're just adding the next. To it. So on and so forth. All right. So that's in terms of saxophone. And so part of it is, there's a kind of a guttural. And in combination with the rhyme. And the thing there was like I'm trying to attack the notes. One of the things that about just keeping your right hand in one location, the big thing that I had to fix last year, you hear all that extra string noise? So I had to figure out how to move my entire right hand technique from decades of work over to there and get it. Because generally speaking, I think this spot right here sounds better than there. This is a little bright, but the pick noise versus the brightness, I just had to learn how to So the deal is, if I want to get articulation, that is, say, adding top end, if you listen, I pick a little harder or softer. I can kind of imitate by picking my normal old. That's about how hard I would pick there. If I lighten up with the right hand there, I can kind of imitate it. It's close enough that I'm like, well, I just have to deal with it. It's one of the kind of conversations that we have internally. That said, some of my favorite playing is what I call the guitar harmonica. Where it's got this kind of wah wah and this area. Alright, let's give it a you. There's kind of this kind of wah wah. So that was informed by, per your question about the sax, that little bit there kind of. Because those are both, you wouldn't traditionally think of the harmonica as a traditional wind instrument, but there's something about the attack, the envelope, that learning to kind of navigate that stuff with the left hand like I did with the saxophone, and then kind of that So, Charlie Musselwhite. See if I can do this without getting a giant strike. Hang on a second. Where is this? Let's see. DD Jams. It should be in here, right? Charlie Musselwhite. No, hang on a second. Let me, real quick. Charlie Musselwhite. Come on. There we go. Where? The song I'm looking for, I'm not finding easily. Let me just see if I can find it really easily. And if not, oh, it'll be in here. Hang on, there it is. Okay, Charlie. There we go. Here we go. Hold on. Let me hit the right button. Come on. Back. That's hilarious. So that's a really interesting thing that we just discovered. There is a moment. Oh, how long have I been on the wrong image? Seriously? No. Now we might do that, but we wouldn't normally do that bend there, though. That sort of thing. I kind of, as I was working on Swagger, this album. guitar. But the point being is that sort of a vibe there is very much inspired by the harmonica, which in turn was inspired by the saxophone. All right. Rabbit trail we went, but great question. I hope that was a help. Thank you. So, Matt King, hello, my dear friend. Great to see you. Hello. Happy New Year. Emmanuel, hello, hello, hello. Thank you very much. I don't know which one of the beautiful guitars it was, but thank you. Old Odie stock. Out of stock. Yes, 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 unfortunately. Gotta love those rosewood ebony fingerboards. Absolutely. So this is a rosewood, it's a mahogany neck with a rosewood board. Which for me is my favorite combination in Gibsonville. Matthias, what's going on, my man? Playing scallop guitars like the YJM Strat. So the crazy thing about that YJM Strat that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I don't know if you were here when we did that. Oh, thank you, Hugh. Whatever I was doing, I hope I'll do it again. Good morning. So the YJM Strat that I've got is scalloped. It's not in the room. Right? No, it's not in the room. And it would take too long for me to grab it. But once you first of all, if you're playing the guitar correctly, quote unquote, you should never be feeling the fingerboard when you're fretting the notes. So, that said, let me rephrase. When I'm actually fretting the note, in theory, I should be centered enough on the fret that I'm coming down at a 90-degree angle. I'm not coming down this way. I'm not going up this way. I'm literally coming down, and I'm literally applying enough pressure to fret the note. Now, if I curve my finger enough, I will feel the fingerboard there, right? But ideally, for most things that we want to be doing, until we start curling our fingers around like this. Now, once I start curling my finger like this, especially, for example, the A note there on the B string, I'm kind of coming down a little bit like this. Let me rephrase. When you're using a classical hand position, besides maybe a little bit of the tip of the first finger, ideally, you're fretting the notes in such a way, generally speaking, in a classical hand position, you shouldn't be feeling the fingerboard because you're literally coming down with just enough pressure that you're just fretting the note. Which means, now, that said, because of the fact that kind of this first finger, utilizing it as a bit of a kind of a noise preventing, I don't want to say capo because it's not fretting technically, but it's kind of a noise preventer. In the process of wrapping it around the high E string and having the tip of my first finger meeting the second string when I'm playing on the high E string, there, I can feel the fingerboard underneath there. When I start playing up here in kind of a blues sort of a position there, then I'm also going to feel the fingerboard on the bass side of the second string when I'm playing that string. But that's not to say that I'm pushing down into the string where I'm starting to feel that. So for the non-pentatonic thumb wrapped around the neck where you can kind of, because you're at an angle to the string, you're now wrapped around the string like that versus coming down on that like that, you generally shouldn't be feeling the fingerboard on the majority of the fingers. But that said, there is enough that if I'm just resting my hand here, think about a chord. If you play a major bar chord, ideally, you're not feeling. Well, okay, I'm going to slightly contradict myself. So, this second finger on this major chord here, because of the curvature of the finger, like here, I can feel the fingerboard right there on that string. But the other, so let's just say I played an A minor bar chord, right? And I wasn't playing an A major bar chord. You're probably not going to feel the actual fingerboard in the process of barring straight across there, right? And then adding those two fingers. That said, when I start adding that second finger, there's enough curvature because of where the first finger is that second finger has got a little bit more curvature as it goes to fret that. I will feel that fingerboard there. But the point being is that we're not really using the fingerboard at all when we're fretting the note. We're fretting off the actual fret. So there you will, in those instances, feel the lack of fingerboard. And that feels strange. However, it takes all of about 5 minutes with the guitar to just kind of go, oh, my intonation just got better. Oh, I'm hanging on the strings. Oh, and so what ends up happening is we become much more aware of the relationship between the fingers, the amount of tension we need to use, and then the string and the fret location that we're at in our hand position. It begins to inform us, because if you think about Yngwie, you ever heard him play out of tune? Like, his intonation is spot on, and in many ways, it just kind of makes it a little bit easier because you're not running into the fingerboard. It is. Now, do I prefer it? No. But what's great about that guitar is I pick it up, and within about a hot second, I'm like, oh, I totally get this. And it's a fabulous instrument. So there was a slightly not great direct answer, but those are, if you ask my thoughts, it was a range of thoughts related or otherwise. Mostly, I think it's a great solution. All right. The shell pink makes the tone even better. Thank you. I've got to tell that to Melissa. Actually, oh, it's not here. It's over wherever it went. It makes the tone better, right? Gosh darn it. Zach, what's going on? Cousin, great to see you. I guess nephew. Look at you all handsome. Good morning, my friend. Curious, size of frets do go on the V on the refret? That is a great question. Whatever was on here is what I replaced it with. So that is to say, like back in the days, the 6100 was the size of the fret that I used on the sticker guitar that you can see right there. That was kind of a slightly larger fret size. I recall that says 6100. So it's got a little bit more meat to it. But on the Gibsons, because they're a shorter scale, I didn't feel the need to go with anything quite as meaty. So actually, this is a great question. Hey, first of all, let me just very quickly go in and make sure I say hello to everybody. Brett, good morning. Steve Greenleaf, good morning. Okay, safe travels. Gary, what's going on, San Francisco brother? Hello, hello, hello. Louis Olvera, love you, my brother. Mr. Tonic, good morning. Clean Tone Burnett, how you doing, my man? Okay, Robot Shlomo, hello, hello. Rick Harrison, good morning. Beautiful day to you as well. Mark, what's happening? Thank you very much. Okay, Mark, what's happening with you? Good morning, good morning. I look forward to seeing you. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Sean, hello. Hey, what's going on, my man? Thank you for that. Sayuru, good morning, good morning, good morning. Randy, hello, hello, hello. Brooks Lundy, hello, my friend. Sings and plays bass like a lunatic. Have a great day. Thanks so much, Eric. Wayne, hello, hello. Oh, great to see you, my friend. Okay. Dennis, hello. Great to see you. Okay. All right, I have a lesson that starts in 4 minutes. So I'm going to, fellow Bay Area brethren here, let me just make sure that I've said hello to everybody, and I apologize if I missed anybody on the way out. Okay, so I've answered the scallop thing, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hand pick waving. I love that. Okay, all right. So here's the deal. I've got a couple of great exercises for you. First and foremost, if you just take this G, A, and B, and just go between. Part of that is just getting used to going. Getting your quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 8 note triplets. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 16 notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Just working the right hand on its own, you may find you're like, oh, so there are certain exercises that I do across multiple strings to really that I find that the one that should be, those are 16th notes. But I find down on those bottom strings, and if I'm going to go, I'm pretty consistent on it. Right, that sort of stuff. My right hand's reasonably good, but I found those 16th notes where basically every string is starting with a downstroke. Should be, and the triplets. That spot right there was kind of my Achilles heel that I'm working on. But working, just getting the left hand and the right hand together is the idea. So I'm basically taking the G major scale, G, hold the A, hold the B, F, C, hold the D, hold the E, hold the F sharp, have the G and adding A and B on the end. What's great about this, you can just hang out slow. And you can just hang out at one spot. The other thing is I would recommend, and I got 1 minute here, with the metronome doing what I call ramp ups. And that is to say, with the metronome engaged at .80 BPM, just getting comfortable there. 85, 90, 95, 100, so on and so forth. And then that way you're just ramping up. You're going to find you'll hit a certain ceiling. Shush. That is your ceiling. So the idea is you back it off 5 BPM below there and you just hang out there and just build the muscle memory. So the right hand. And the other thing about playing it at the different spots of string tension, as you move up the neck, is a little bit different at these different locations. So hanging out at these different locations is a good thing. So just kind of parking there and then ramping up there as well. And then the idea is just working this. That's playing each one of these 3-note sequences twice. And then on the way back down, we're descending. That's B-A-G. And you're going to probably encounter the transition points. This, besides the note I dropped, the hard part is not going, it's going between those two spots of, and the hard spot isn't going, or the tough part is going, that part where you're doing the second of and the first of. So target and isolating that up and down the neck. I need to jump into my lesson. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Much love. Next week, I'm at the Nuno camp. The next week, I'm at NAMM. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Thank you so much for making my day awesome. Bye for now. Thanks again. Cheers. Didn't totally suck. Testing. Okay. Aha. All right, the mixopentatonic. All right, how's it going, my man?
Pretty well, pretty well. I've been working on some more original stuff, preparation for Nuno's camp.
You excited?
Yeah, definitely.
What are you looking forward to the most? If there's anything you're kind of like, hey.
I would say, well, one of them is definitely getting the opportunity to learn from Nuno himself, and then also the solo tracking. I'm excited to see what that's going to be like.
If you could ask Nuno one question off the top of your head, what would that be?
I would say maybe. I think one thing I'm curious about across several artists would be their approach to how they write music, because I know there are a lot of different approaches out there, and then there are some things that work for guitar players, others that work for maybe drummers, bassists, that kind of thing. And so I was curious to see if he had any like advice regarding that, or just a general guideline as to how he approaches that.
Go ahead and hit record.
Recording in progress.
Okay, to paraphrase what you just said, one of the things towards the top of your list that you would ask Nuno is about his approach to songwriting. If you were going to drop a pinpoint in the middle of a period of Extreme or Nuno's songwriting stuff and a particular song, what would that be and where would that be?
I would say maybe during his work with Extreme, because he has a really cool, unique blend of like the lead and the rhythm playing in his arrangements. Because I've taken a look at a couple of his songs, like "Get the Funk Out" or "Rise" or "Play with Me," and all of those had really cool, well, arrangements for the guitar parts. And sometimes he would add fills in the middle of his rhythm section, almost like what a drummer would do, but as a guitar player. And so I don't know how he thinks about that necessarily, or even with this new song that he's recording for the camp. I wonder how he approached the whole creation of that.
Holy cow, my lesson is on the live stream. How did this not end? Thank you, Albert.